exactly like Earth. It's a duplicate of Earth. Duplicate planet. Everything is the same. Okay? Everything's the same. Except that the people he notices as he checks into a Holiday Inn, you know, they have those little brown kind of shampoo bottles, the miniature ones, you know, that Sassoon puts out. Checks out. Everything's the same. But he notices that the people are different. And the only difference, it turns out, as he discovers it, is that the people on Uranus are neurotic by their reality. They have to be. They can't help it. It's the way things are. Because the first encounter is with this woman named Eykis, who gives the anxiety attack report right after the weather. It turns out that on Uranus, anxiety really attacks. Right? So you have to be on guard for it all the time. Got to buy your Valium and get it ready in case an unexpected attack of anxiety comes over the mountains. So you can't figure this out. Starts talking to this person. Finds out that, you see, people on Earth, as he is talking to this woman, Eykis, who is the only character in the book, talks to her about, like, people have anxiety attacks on Earth, too. And she can't, well, of course, you know, anxiety. But anxiety doesn't really attack, and she can't quite understand that, you see. So it's like when you begin to look at the difference between Uranus and Earth, you find that people are guilty on Uranus too. But guilt serves a purpose. Because if you feel guilty long enough on Uranus, you get to go into rewind. You go backwards, you get to do it over. Oh, yeah, it's great. It's great. Makes a lot of sense. See, then you'll hear people on Uranus saying, you know, you should have done it this way. If only you would have listened to me. And that makes sense there, because if you say you should have, you would have, you could have enough, you get to go back, do it over, and fix it. I didn't like the way I talked to my mother. I shouldn't have talked to her that way. That's right. You shouldn't have talked to her that way. That's right. Backwards, do it over. Mom, yeah, you know, you're really a nice lady. And get to do it over. There's no guilt serves a purpose. Okay? It's a great idea. Rewind would be great, wouldn't it? Because you hear people talking like we have rewind all the time. Oh, yeah, sure. You hear it everywhere. I went up to give a speech up in Minnesota, arrived there. The guy that picked me up at the airport, I said, look, these leaves. I haven't seen leaves changing in a long time. This is really beautiful. So can you just go a little slow? I'd like to see these. I live down in Florida where, you know, he said, Doc, he said, that's nothing. You should have been here last week. I said, what? He said, you should have been here last week. I said, last week I was in Florida. He said, yeah, but you should have been here. It was really beautiful. I said, you could never should have been here last week, this week. You can't do that. Can't do that on Earth. Just can't. You try it. You get out there and should have been here last week, this week. You can't do that. And Uranus, you can do that. You can't do that here. I don't want to be told what I should have done. You know, when your kids come home at 5 and they were supposed to have called at 3, and you tell them you should have called at 3, they know they're talking to a banana. They know that. They can't say anything, but they know. And you hear people talking. Wait a second, close the doors here. Close the doors. Don't let anybody out. I want to tell you people something. Do you know that if every one of you in 1916, if you'd have bought 5 shares, Coca-Cola, 5 shares of Coca-Cola, you'd be millionaires today. Millionaires. I know some of you weren't alive in 1960. But you could have been. And if you would have been, and you would have bought those 5 shares, Well, you wouldn't have any problems today. You hear this kind of talk all the time. Now, on Uranus, people there have phobias just like we have. You see? On Uranus, you'll hear people saying, "Whew, God, those elevators really scare me." Interesting thing is that elevators on Earth don't scare anybody. Yet people say it all the time. The elevator really scares me. Really frightens me. On Uranus, they're programmed to scare. All right? You get in and it goes, holy, what was that? That elevator really scared me. Not on Earth. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. I heard somebody on Uranus talking about gave his wife a complex. One of my very favorite stories was from a woman, a beautiful woman, who was 39 years old and in therapy with me. And she said something to me one day in the course of a counseling session. She said, my husband gave me a complex. Almost like what I'd like to have as a complex for my wife. In this case, he needed two, because she said he gave me a complex about my breasts and about my body. He gave me a complex. And I'll have two of those. If you gift wrap them, please. And on Mother's Day, it's you open them up and say, "Oh, look, a complex." So I'll put one right over here and one right over here. And people say, "What happened to you?" "Oh, my husband gave me a complex about that. That's why I am the way I am." And he would say things to her like, she would say, "He thinks I'm stupid." I said, well, knowing him, as I did, that doesn't surprise me that he would say that. Did it ever occur to you that today he thinks you're stupid? And you are, obviously, because you're all upset about it. You must believe him. Did it ever occur to you that tomorrow he's going to come home and say, "Yesterday, dear, you were stupid. Today, you're a car"? Why not? He could do anything knowing this guy. I said, "Would you be a car if he came home and said you were a car?" He said, "Well, no, don't be." I said, "Wait a second. What if he said, okay, get down on all fours. I got a funnel with me," and put a funnel in your ear and started pouring gasoline into you. Would you be a car then? She said, "Of course not. I'm not a car." Why are you stupid? She was the kind of person who would go to a party and someone would say, "Hey, stupid," and she would turn around. I didn't know they knew I was coming to this party. Right away looking. I mean, that's really what paranoia is. You see, people are always talking about you all the time. It's just a question of, what do you do with it? A fully functioning person walks down the street and somebody looks at him and that person says, "Of course they're talking about me. The only person around here worth being talked about." Probably got a lot of nice things to say about me. The neurotic says, "Oh my God, what are they saying about me? How could they be laughing about that's not," and they get themselves all worked up. That's what paranoia is. The best definition I ever heard of it was something that Murray Banks told me. He said a woman was at the racetrack, and she walked up to somebody, she said, "Excuse me, do you have a safety pin, sir?" And he said, "No, I'm sorry, I don't." He walked up to somebody else, she got really nervous. "Excuse me, do you have a safety pin over here?" "No, I don't have one, I'm sorry." Suddenly over the loudspeaker, she heard at the racetrack, "They're off," and she fainted, okay? That's paranoia. Back to Uranus. If you believe that you can give somebody else a complex, or somebody else can give you a complex, you're in the wrong planet. Only on Uranus can you go in and order those things. And worry on Uranus is one of those things that exists because it's necessary. If you want to change something in the future, what you do is you worry about it, and then you can accelerate a computer terminal which will allow you the information to tell you whether or not the plane's going to crash. So you don't get on it if it's going to crash. You don't have any worries at all. I mean, if you worry has its own kind of inherent value. It keeps you from being neurotic. And on Earth, of course, worry is just another way of using up your present moments to be consumed about something in the future over which you have absolutely no control. So that's the first part of this book. Here's this wanderer arriving on this place, seeing all of these things, all these neurotic people, but having a reason for it all. Convinces Eykis to come to Earth. All right? She arrives here, and it's like the middle third. This is very short. The middle third of it is her wandering around our planet, not being able to figure out why there's so many people here who are neurotic when they have no reason to be. Anxiety doesn't attack. Guilt doesn't change anything. You can't go into rewind while you're here. People have phobias because they choose to, yet they blame the snake, or they blame the elevator, or heights. They say, heights really scare me. Like, heights care? Heights don't care, folks. You're scared of heights because you choose to think that way when you get in high places, which isn't so bad. But don't blame the height unless you go to Uranus. On Uranus, mountaintops are on hinges, you see. That way, if you get too close to them, they kind of unhinge and scare the hell out of you. Oh, my God. But not on Earth. And, of course, the last third of it is like, here's a person who can only see reality as it is. And she's going to give advice to us, the secrets of the universe, if you will, on what can make our planet work at a whole new level if we were only reality-based instead of non-reality based. That is, the problem with being neurotic is not that you're unhappy. It's just that you're wrong. Yeah, neurotics are just wrong. They say, you're hurting my feelings. That's just wrong. You're embarrassing me now. Now you're making me feel bad. Nobody can do that. You know, nobody, as Eleanor Roosevelt told us, can make a fool out of you without your consent. Nobody can do that. It's up to you. Now, I was going to call this book, and I had it all set. If you want to be happy, get your head out of Uranus. But I didn't. I called it Gifts from Eykis, and I'm really excited about it. It's kind of a parable satire, kind of a fun thing.